Hi, thanks so much for joining and welcome to Managing Your Own Radical Change. And this is a special series. This series is all about my experience um in my own healing, in my own journey, in my own life of really getting to the point where I really am able to put the pieces together. And I'm excited to be able to put those pieces together with you for you to benefit as well as me. For those of you who are meeting me for the first time, my name is Vonda Page, and I am a coach, consultant, and narcissistic abuse survivor. And I am just now learning that as a survivor that um I have experienced a lifetime of narcissistic abuse, and that lifetime of narcissistic abuse literally became clear for me um as I have been doing not only my own work, as far as my own healing, but doing the work with clients. And one of the things that became super clear for me was that women, and even more specifically, Black women, had not been working on our healing. And I kept on saying, Black women not healing. Black women are not working on our healing. Black women aren't working on healing. Black women ain't working on healing. And then finally, um, it dawned on me that I was talking to myself, and I started doing a series on self-awareness, and then I got sick. I got like way, 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 way sick. I couldn't talk. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't be awake. And I think it was because I needed to recognize the grave need for my own healing. I needed to acknowledge where I was. And once I had determined and figured out that I have had a lifetime of narcissistic abuse, starting with my mother, my stepfather, my grandfather, my aunts, my two husbands, one, two, three boyfriends, and bosses, and even a few platonic women friends. It was devastating. It was devastating. And the thing that's so interesting about all of it is that I had been studying narcissism. I had been researching narcissism. I had been looking into narcissism and talking to people about narcissism from the standpoint of what does narcissism look like in the context of white supremacy? What does narcissism look like in the context of patriarchy and capitalism? And what does narcissism look like at a societal level? Well, I hadn't looked at it from what does it look like at a personal level. I hadn't looked at it, what does it look like from an individual level. I haven't looked at it from the standpoint of what are the behaviors and characteristics of narcissism and borderline personality disorder, so that I could understand behaviors that I was around my entire life. Now, when I was 9 or 10 years old, that's when I started going to the library. That's when I started researching psychology. That's when I started researching sociology. That's when I started researching child abuse. I started researching all of these things because I wanted to have an insight into what was going to be wrong with me, because my mother was severely abusing me. In addition to my mom abusing me, I was gaslit by literally my entire family. And my entire family, who knew that my mom was abusing me, made sure that they did not um, do anything to intervene to make my life better. They did not do anything to make anything better. They did not help me out, and in fact, they made excuses. They supported gaslighting. They were involved in triangulation. They would mirror me, when I would talk about the things I was going through with my mom, but then just leave me hanging. So there is a litany of things that have happened over and over and over, and I didn't realize that I hadn't really addressed those in the context of narcissism. I hadn't really addressed my own healing in the context of my family. I only had been addressing it kind of like, okay, my mom, I was abused, my father wasn't there. I kind of ruled that out of my mind. And literally just blamed my mom for everything, but looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, however she got how she got wasn't really her fault, blah, 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 blah. And basically, I kept going on with the same subject and the same story of narcissism. The same way that we, as a society, have dealt with narcissism. The same way that we have made it okay for people in high positions that have power, that have influence, that have authority. We have made it okay for these people to get away with harming the rest of us. It's kind of like the way it goes. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, we have given over our power. We have given over our power. We have given over our power to the people who decide how much food is going to cost. For the people who decide that they want to feed us poison. For the people who decide that they know that Instagram is going to be harming kids for future generations and they still won't do nothing about it. hmm And on that, I'm gonna have me some for real Mexican salsa, like straight up. These people is from Mazatlan, and I'm loving it. Okay, so what it boils down to, right, is it boils down to the fact that we all have been conditioned and programmed to accept the way that we get treated. We've been conditioned and programmed, right, to um, take all of this harsh, abusive, horrible treatment and not do anything about it. Well, how did we get accustomed to this treatment? Well, we got accustomed to this treatment for the reason that we don't talk about. And what we don't talk about is the system of narcissism. What we don't talk about is the structure of narcissism. What we don't talk about is how patriarchal, white supremacist capitalism is narcissism. But even if we take white supremacy out of it, and even if we take capitalism out of it, what do we have? We have patriarchy. And what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is legalized slavery of women and children. Period. End of story. Where in the world doesn't this exist except for a pocket and different pockets of communities in different places around the world? Where doesn't it exist that women are not subjugated to men, that children aren't subjugated to their parents? That doesn't exist in the world. In the world that we have, women and children, thank you, in the world that we have, right, women and children are enslaved to men. And in the world that we have, in which I'm going to get into in my book in more detail, the world in which we have, women are forced to trade our children for capitalism. We're forced to give our children up for capitalism. And we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to admit it. We're not allowed to acknowledge it, but we all know that that's true. And so let's talk about some few examples, right? And this is one of the things that helped me. But let's talk about a few examples. So number one, right? Um, as a mother, right? You raise a kid and you help your kid towards some sort of goal, to be a dentist, to be a doctor, to be a football player, a basketball player, a truck driver, to go into the army. What does that mean? What is that? When you are giving up your kid. You are giving away your kid for what? For capitalism. You're giving away your kid, whether it's for the highest bidder or the next to the highest bidder. But at the end of the day, right, you are sacrificing your kid to capitalism. You are hoping that if your kid goes into a certain profession or gets a job at a certain company or goes in a certain field or a certain industry, that that kid is going to be able to take care of you. At the very least, that kid is going to be able to take care of themselves and maybe you, right? Um, and we push our kids towards these careers and we push our kids towards these areas and we push our kids towards these goals because capitalism tells us that if you don't work, you don't eat. And we want to make sure our kids eat because as a non-white parent, you don't know if you're gonna have enough money for your kids to eat, right? You don't know if you're gonna have enough money for your kids to live. You don't know if you're gonna have a house for your kids to buy. You don't know for your kids to move into. You don't know what you're gonna have because this country is not set up for anybody except for white people to succeed. It's set up for people who support white supremacy, who support capitalism and colonialism and patriarchy, who support that. Those are the people who get to thrive. Nobody else gets to thrive. Nobody else gets to do well. Nobody else gets to have an amazing life unless you do those things. Now, when you get to the point where you understand that you don't have to do those things and you get to design the life you want, then things change for you. But until that time, we're all told and we're all sold on the story that you have to do A, B, C, and D if you want to survive. We are sold on the story that you have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Everything is about merit. Everything is about this. Everything is about that. When what we really know is that America is designed for black people to be the permanent slave class. And for everybody else to try to do whatever they can to keep from getting down to that class. And what has happened is all the other groups have done the work, right, to keep from doing that, right? They have told the line and they said, we will not align ourselves with black people. We will be as anti-black as possible. And we will, not for a minute, not for a moment, not for a second, we will not acknowledge black people's pain, black people's trauma, and we will not for 1 minute, not for 1 second, not for anything. We will not put in the work, we will not put in the effort, we will not do what is required to help black people get their liberation. We're not going to do it because we want to make sure that we get some of the pie too. Now, if we are not a white male with American heritage, we might realize that, okay, we're going to be a billionaire, but maybe we could be a multi-millionaire, right? Maybe we could be a half a billionaire, right? If we play our cards right and if we continue in this anti-blackness. Okay, well, fine. That is a conversation that most Americans are not ready to have. Most Americans are not ready to have a conversation about anti-blackness, and people are definitely not ready to have a conversation about reparations. So until we get to a point where people are ready to talk about reparations, until people are ready to talk about what does radical change really look like for real? What does it look like for black Americans to be free? Then all those other conversations around change leadership, all those other conversations around change agency, all those other conversations around social justice, those conversations are moot. And it doesn't make sense to have those conversations until we get to the point where we can recognize that we are in a culture of narcissistic abuse. When we can recognize that we are in a culture of narcissistic abuse, then we can get somewhere. Because then we can recognize that this daddy narcissism, this daddy starts in the colonies, this daddy starts in England, this daddy starts in the Caucasus Mountains. This daddy starts way back when somebody said, me and you can't be equal. I had to beat your ass so that I can be in charge of you. That's when it started. And what we have to do as individual people is decide how many people we have to be in control of. Why do we have to beat somebody's ass? Why do we have to control somebody in order to feel like we're fulfilled, in order to have our lives, in order to have our destinies? Why can't we just rock and roll with life? Why can't we just rock and roll with life? Why do we have to be the brute? The reason we have to be the brute is because we were raised as the brute. We were raised as the brute. We were raised to accept the brute. So whether we talk about Brutus from Popeye, the Sailor Man, and what was her name? Alice? No, that wasn't it. Popeye and Olive. Olive. This notion of the brute, right? This notion of the brute is the narcissist. This notion of the brute is the person with narcissistic personality disorder. And the person with narcissistic personality disorder, that is the person who cannot, who cannot change who they are. The person with narcissistic personality disorder has an actual personality disorder that can never be cured. They will never be healed. Although, right, what they can do is they can learn some skills to better manage how they respond and how they show up in the world, right? But what we can do, right, as people who are victims of narcissistic abuse, people who get to the point where we realize, okay, I have been, a victim of narcissistic abuse and I'm ready to heal on it. Okay, as we get to that point, right, then what we can do is really explore how do we heal, right? What we can really do is get on a path of radical change. And what I want to say is that path of radical change, it begins not only with desire, right? Because the desire is the root of all radical change, but it also begins with the acknowledgement of the abuse and the acknowledgement of the victimhood and the acknowledgement of the harm and the acknowledgement of the pain. So, for example, right, Black people in America are not allowed to acknowledge our pain. Black people in America are not allowed to acknowledge our victimization. Black people in America are not allowed to acknowledge the pain of slavery and what that looks like, in our lives, right? And we get that and we know it. So what does that look like? That looks like a lot of Black people denying their Blackness overall. That looks like a lot of Black people blaming Black people for what's gone wrong. And it also looks like Black people utilizing narcissistic personality traits, harmful narcissistic behaviors to harm other Black people, including to harm people that they're close to. Whether it is a mom harming a daughter as their first bully, a mom harming her little sister as her first bully, a sister harming a little sister, a brother harming a little brother, a brother harming a little sister, a parent harming a child. Either way, right? When you get to this point where you recognize that you were a victim of narcissistic abuse, it's deep. So for me, what I had been doing was I had been studying narcissism for a really long time. I've probably been studying narcissism for about 4 years. And for the last 2 years, I've been studying narcissism very specifically in the context of white supremacy, specifically in the context of whiteness, behaviors, characteristics, and traits of whiteness, how that shows up in white women, most specifically, not so much white men. I feel like narcissism, white supremacy is easy. How does it show up in white men? White men are in charge of everything, and white men do not hold each other accountable for fixing any of the problems that they cause. Boom. I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. Boom, boom, boom. It's simple. I love my clients that are white men because they are very cut and dry. They understand things very easily. You don't have to go through a bunch of rigmarole with them. Even when they are narcissists, they still have a very clear and detailed understanding of what is right, what makes sense, and what doesn't make sense. However, when it comes to other people who don't have the same stature and the same power, right, it's much more difficult for people to comprehend, right? It's much more difficult for people to latch hold of because they have a different power dynamic that shows up. So for me, right, it was a couple things that all converged at one time. Number one, it was the context around Black women not healing, right? That was one. And I was like, why does this keep on coming up for me? Well, number one, I kept on bringing Black women into my spaces, and they was going buck wild crazy, just saying all kind of crazy shit. Well, in the meantime, I have had a Black woman at my inner circle for the past 2 years who's been doing nothing but sucking me damn blood dry and keeping me off my game, keeping me away from my goals and stuff. Now, not that person doing it, but my lack of understanding and how narcissistic abuse works. My lack of understanding how narcissistic personality disorder shows up. My lack of understanding that me as a victim of narcissistic abuse for my entire life wouldn't notice a person that is manipulating me because me as an empath, what am I noticing? I'm noticing the parts in me that other people reflect because everybody is a reflection of us pushed out. Everybody's a fragment of us. So if I meet somebody and they're mirroring me, all I'm gonna see is me. So I'm gonna see loyal, kind, honest, tell it like it is, straight up, give you the shirt off your back type of person. That's who I'm gonna see. I'm gonna be the person that when you come to my house, I'm gonna make the bathroom, and I'm gonna make the guest room and the bathroom like a spa. I'm gonna make it like how I want my house to be for myself, my bathroom 24/7. I'm gonna do and give you all of the things I want. I'm gonna do and give you all of those things that not only show and tell you who I am, but who show you or that show you how I love and appreciate you. And I've always taken that to heart, right? Not only have I taken to heart as a man finger to a T, but I took to a heart that you don't treat others. You treat others how you want to be treated, plain and simple. And I want everybody to treat me with love, respect, with kindness. I want people to give me their best all the time. So if somebody don't give me their best, I'm ready to cuss them out. If somebody don't want to treat me kind, the hell with them. If somebody don't want to give me respect and love and compassion and all that stuff, I'm ready to cuss their ass out, and I'm ready to like go to the mat. I'm ready to go wall to wall. And so for me, right, I'm saying, why aren't black women healing? What is going on? I'm holding these little meetings, and black women is coming and going crazy at me. They literally beat my ass like I'm the slave master. I'm like, okay, something's up. Then I'm holding space and black women. Now this is with black women alone. Then I'm holding space with mixed space with people, and I'm just, hey, here's some information, here's some announcement, here's some stuff I got going on. Black women's attacking me. They going crazy on the white people, and the white people just minding their own business. The white people is at least supporting me, giving me money, helping me trying to maintain, my business. The black women, they ain't doing shit but complaining and treating me like shit. So then you get to a point and you ask a question, you ask yourself a question, right? And you say, okay, what am I dealing at? What am I looking at? What is what's what? So because black women kept coming into my space, harming me and, making a big ruckus, I was like, okay, black women ain't healing. Black women ain't healing. Okay. Well, meanwhile, I'm doing my shit, right? I'm focusing on me. I am putting in the effort on me. I'm sleeping. I'm resting. I'm getting on airplanes. I'm laying on beaches. I'm laying by pools. I'm taking hotel naps. I'm taking hammock naps. Like, I'm doing my thing. What what didn't I realize? Well, what I really didn't realize was that the person that wasn't healing was me. Yeah, maybe I was taking some naps and I was getting rest and I was doing some stuff. But what wasn't I doing? I really wasn't unpacking what is the stuff that I need help from. What actually happened to me and who did it, right? So I told the story in episode 1 about my mom who had been calling me fat. And I didn't know that my mom was calling me fat, right? I found out she was calling me fat, and it was a really painful thing. Found out my grandfather was a narcissist at the same time. And then when I started really thinking about it and I started going through that story, I was like, okay, yeah, things make sense, right? It makes sense that I didn't realize any of this was going on. That's number one. But even more so, right? What really makes sense is really getting to the point of there is no clearing up, right? Or there is no fixing um this issue without like going for it, right? Because at the end of the day, right, you get to decide for yourself and you say, okay, what am I missing? What do I know? What's what or whatever. And what I know is that the way in which I'm treated by people in my life is a direct indication of how I feel like my value is, right? So if I'm treated like crap by my family of origin, that's going to make me question myself. That's going to make me question who I am, if I'm okay, and what is it about my perceived reality, and what is it about my real reality? Like, what are the things that make sense? What are the things that are congruent? What are the things that I can really wrap my mind around? Now, if I can't wrap my mind around jack shit, because what I recognize is that, okay, everything that I have taken on in my life is really a result of how the people in my life have treated me. Then I have a different kind of a thing, right, that I need to answer to, right? Like, I have a different kind of a thing to address, right? I have a different kind of a thing to look at. So I get the opportunity, right, to say, okay, what do I know, or what did I know, and what do I know now? What I used to know is that my mom had problems. And I used to say that to people. My mom had problems. I don't know what they were, but my mom had problems. And because my mom had problems, this is what she did to me. And this is how what she did to me, this is how it showed up. This is what it looks like, and this is what it turned out to be. Well, now I can look back and say, oh, yeah, my mom had NPD. My mom had narcissistic personality disorder. I can look back and say, so did my stepfather, so did my grandfather, and then I could say, so did three of my aunts, um, or three of my mom's sisters. So that is my immediate family. That is my support system. That would have been anybody that could have helped me, anybody who could have advocated for me, anybody who could have supported me. They either were married to the narcissist, or they was a sister of the narcissist, or they was the parent of the narcissist. And because of that, right, I really didn't have a lot of options for how to navigate that system. And one of the things that helps us heal, right, especially when we go through trauma as a young person, one of the things that helps us heal is that viewpoint of how we looked at the things that happened to us. Did we look at it like it was out of our control and we didn't have no choice? Or did we look at, oh, if I would have made better decisions, or if I would have did this, or if I would have did that, or if I would have did that? So for me, it was, I had been getting narcissistic abuse content. And what is a narcissist? And narcissism content. I've been getting that shit down my timeline and my algorithm for about 3.5 years. But I didn't know that it was because it was trying to tell me, hey, look here, you've been a victim of narcissistic abuse. I did not know that. And then recently, in 2024. I'm doing more research on it because it's just coming up for me. Probably because of a relationship that I had to dissolve after 2 years. And then when I realized, well, what is wrong? And how come I had to dissolve the relationship? Then I realized, oh, the person was a damn narcissist. And I didn't know that. I just thought the person didn't like me. And that's one of the things that is a common theme in my life. She don't like me. Different women I've been involved with, from my mother down through, different people in my life that I realized didn't love me. And I thought that it was, they just don't like me because they don't like themselves. Well, I didn't realize it was so much deeper. I didn't realize that narcissism is really at the core of people not liking themselves and therefore people not liking us. And that's why I ended up merging like three different books that I was writing. One was a memoir of my life, one was about healing, and the other one was literally about, like, damn, I had these women in my life that didn't like me, how I overcame that. And then recently, over the last, I guess, a couple of months after I started that work, when I realized, well, damn, I'm the victim of narcissistic abuse. And narcissistic abuse is the thing that has put me, kind of like, okay, well, this is where I am now. I'm in the recovery stage. And because I'm in the recovery stage of narcissistic abuse, I'm also in a stage where not only do I want to help other people recover from the abuse that they're suffering, but I also want to make sure that people who are in these type of narcissistic abuse relationships, that they're able to recognize the signs and patterns of these relationships, that they understand the characteristics, the traits, but more specifically that they understand the behaviors. One of the things that I think about a lot is how, for all of the really good therapists I've had in my life, no therapist ever recommended me for me to quit a job or break up with a boyfriend. And when I got rid of a relationship that I had had for a really long time, it was really crazy that I didn't feel like the therapists were kind of like cheering for me in it. I felt like they were like, oh, wow, this is a decision that she made that we wouldn't necessarily tell her to make, because therapy is designed to buck you up to get you to go back to work. And I was like, I can't go back to this relationship because this relationship is too harmful. Well, now fast forward, I understand that relationship was with a narcissist. And I also understand that all but maybe three of the adult relationships, and probably 90% of the relationships that I was in with adults as a child, those were narcissistic relationships. And those people were controlling me in some way. And those people were controlling me at some way and in some way. Because at the end of the day, those people had an influence on what I decided to do. And that influence on what I decided to do may or may not have been in my best interest. But it was either what I thought I needed to do or what I should do because of the way in which other people treated me. So because of the way other people treated me, because of the way I was groomed, because of the way I learned, because of yada, 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 I got to a point in my own life, in my own development, in my own whatever, that I um, listen to other people in terms of what's best for me, what I should do, blah, blah, blah. And I will go so far as to say that most of us do that because most of us have been trained and conditioned to do what we're told. Most of us have been trained and conditioned to listen to people who we feel are smarter than us, listen to people who we feel are in more privileged positions than us, people who we feel have influence. We've been conditioned to listen to these people. So, for example, somebody got 15,000 followers on TikTok and another person got 150,000 followers. Who do you think people gonna watch the video? They not gonna watch the video of the little creator and try to bulk that person up. No, they're gonna watch the video of the big creator because they're gonna think, oh, this person must know something because they got this many followers. Basically, what they don't realize is that the person with the most followers, that's the person whose um, following is influenced by the powers that be. That's the person whose following is influenced by people who are saying, this is the message that we want you to hear. So when this person talks, we're going to boost it up. But we all, right, are supposed to be too dumb, and we're not supposed to know that. We are supposed to be too stupid, and we're not supposed to realize, how things really work or how things really happen. So what has happened over however long, right, is that we have all agreed to um, pretending that things don't bother us when they do. We've all agreed to acting like the way that our society has enslaved us is not okay. We've agreed to it. I remember in 2023, I saw a video on TikTok. I'll never forget that shit. It was a motherfucking Dalai Lama telling a kid to suck his tongue. It made me so sick. I was sick. I was sick on my motherfucking stomach. And the fact that people laughed and they made it like it was a joke, I said, my God, we have sold over our children to these different gurus and these religious freaks and all these people. And for what? Because it's been normalized. Because we've been conditioned to do it. Because somebody told us that, blah, blah, blah. And here we go, just going with this shit, right? Here we go, just making it seem like everything is okay. Here we go, and just doing it. And I was like, I'm done. And it was really, really, really hard for me to go back on social media at the point because I had to really say to myself, okay, um, you are on a different kind of thing because this ain't bothering most people. And I had to kind of do some self work and some healing to kind of like figure out like how I was going to handle it. And for me, I'm just like, okay, um, all religious people are garbage, period. And all they do is utilize their they utilize their power and their position to exploit people. And it was nothing more clear to me than the Dalai Lama doing it. And, it's kind of like me realizing that I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. It was the same thing. It was like all the information kept coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down. It's in my face. The information's coming down, coming down. But for some reason, I'm able to not ignore it, but I'm able to not make action on it or not pick up on it or not work on it or not like do anything about it other than just like accept okay, this is what it is. And in all the aspects of my real life, my personal life, that was never the case. I'm never going to sit and accept things. I'm never going to say, okay, well, it's fine like it is, and I'm not going to do something. If something is wrong, I'm going to fight. If there's something wrong and somebody doing it to me, guess what? You going to kill me first, or I'm going to die trying to fight for myself. I'm going to die kicking ass. I'm good. hmm I'm a continue to focus on whatever that goal is that I need to work on. I'm gonna continue to focus on what is the thing that is going to make me successful. So I remember a person asked me one time they said to me, what is my spiritual practice? And I said, my spiritual practice is to be 100% present in every interaction. Because when I'm 100% present in every interaction, what it allows me to do is it allows me to know what exactly is going on. You can't get nothing over on me because I'm paying attention and I know what's what. Now, if I'm not present in any interaction, you could tell me something and it might slip by because I'm too busy, or I'm too this, or I'm too that, or blah, blah, blah. However, if you tell me, hey, this is something I need you to focus on, and this is what I want to work on, then I'm going to be 100% there. Not only am I going to be present, I'm going to take notes, I'm going to write follow ups, I'm going to write reminders. I'm probably going to go in my app and record a whole thing around this is how I need to handle it, this is what I want to do, and these are the things that come up. So when I think about right, okay, realizing that point as a victim of narcissistic abuse, it was like, oh my goodness, I kept on telling my family, my mom is this, my mom is that. Whether we talking about the movie Mommy Dearest, whether we talking about the Penny episode of Good Times, my family knew and I knew. But the thing was, we didn't have language for it. We didn't have a thing called narcissistic abuse. We didn't have a thing called narcissism. Like, we didn't have it. Not that those words weren't in the lexicon of American psychology, but it wasn't in the common conversation. And I think that if I wasn't on social media, I don't know how many people would be talking specifically about narcissism and using the term. For me, I love language. I'm a linguist. And having a term to phrase it all in and to understand that this is all narcissism, to understand that this is narcissistic personality disorder. It's a personality disorder. Now, if my personality is disordered, then yeah, I can be violent. I can be a gaslighter, right? I could be a manipulator. I could be all of these things, right? I could be transactional. And I could be all of these things that indicate this is the type of person that I am, and blah, 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 blah. And, right, when I'm self aware, when I am in a healing posture, when I want to grow, when I want to learn, when I want to evolve, then I can say, okay, so because I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to evolve, here's where I go. Here's what I do next, right? And the here's what I do next is all about, okay, I do not want to be the same person tomorrow that I am today. I want to be a better version of that person. So, what are those things that I need to do to ensure that I'm a better version of that person? What are those things that I need to do to make sure that the person I wake up as tomorrow is different than the person today? Well, the first is desire. Desire is the root of all change. That's number one, right? Is the root of all change is desire. I have to have a deep down desire that I really want to change. But secondarily, I gotta have some tactics. I have to have tactics. I have to have techniques. And I have to have tools. The tactics have to be strategic. They have to be structured. They have to be sustainable. They have to be supportive. They have to be something that I could do. But the techniques also have to be sustainable. They have to be supported. They have to be stuff I can actually do, right? It can't be something that I can't do. So, for example, let's say a technique to something was learn how to speak a foreign language, but you don't have the internet and you don't have no books and you don't have a cell phone that can connect you to anything. Well, maybe learning a language is not going to be something that you could do because it's not going to be sustainable because you don't have regular access to the internet, right? But there may be other things that you could do. Like every day at the crack of dawn, you could be grateful. Every day at the crack of dawn, you could wake up and you could say, I am love. I am gratitude. I am faith. I am hope. I am loyal. I am kind. I am empathetic. I have compassion. Like you could do that every day, right? And there's these different things that you could do. And at the same time, when you're talking about these different things that you can do, there is a way to think about, okay, I might have been a victim, but now I'm a survivor. And what does being a survivor look like, right? So for me, figuring out that I was a victim, man, I cried for 2 straight days. Like just cry, 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 cry. I could not empty out my tears. And for anybody who knows me, will know that for me, crying is a big deal. It doesn't matter what happened. It's the likelihood that I'm gonna cry is gonna be really low. And that's because of my childhood. That's because of the way I was raised. That's because of my mom. That's because of a whole bunch of you cry me, get something to cry about. And I just learned how to not to cry. I learned how not to feel stuff. I learned how to choke it down. I learned how to swallow it up. I learned how to not have myself be impacted by things that happen. Period. On the outside. Now, am I impacted inside? Yeah. And now, kind of understanding epigenetic trauma, I'm so sorry that I didn't do more work on my own healing, but I'm going to do it now. And as I have this awakening and this realization of how I became and was a victim of narcissistic abuse, this awakening, this understanding, this awakening, this understanding it's going to help other people. It's going to help other people wake up to, okay, what does narcissistic abuse look like? What was my experiences? Blah, 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 blah. And you're going to be able to ask yourself all these questions. So in the book, right, I'm going to talk about my different stories, whether it's my mom or this person, so that you can identify and find these people in your own life and recognize, yeah, this person was abusing me, this person was abusing me, blah, blah, blah. But then even the next level beyond that is, okay, I learned that I was abused. I learned that I was mistreated. I learned that I was a victim. And through that learning, here's the things that I do differently now as a result of that. Here's how I do X, Y, and Z. Here is A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. This is the most important piece is once you get to the awakening, once you realize, right, okay, I was the victim of narcissistic abuse. Once you know you was a victim of narcissistic personality disorder or borderline personality disorder, and you know that people abuse you, now you get the opportunity to do something different. Now you get the opportunity to change. Now you get the opportunity to heal. Now you get the opportunity to grow. And when you're ready to get into it and you want to do some one-on-one coaching, listen, all you gotta do is download the Leaders Learning Radical Change app or the Radical Change app and just message me coaching. Just message me, hi, what's up? And I will give you a free 15 minutes discovery conversation and then we can take it from there. If you are a manager or you are, consider yourself to make sure a complete of your own family and you really want to dive into narcissistic abuse patterns that you may have, if you want to work on your healing, that is also an option. Same scenario. Download the Leaders Learn Radical Change app, download the Radical Change app from Apple, Google Play, or the web, and then just message me, and so we can get started. Realizing that you are a victim of narcissistic abuse is a painful thing. Realizing you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, it hurts, right? Because you just are like, damn, what the hell? And, right, it doesn't mean that that victimhood lasts. It doesn't mean that that victimhood stays forever, right? What it does mean is that you have the opportunity to turn what you have learned, what you've uncovered, and what you found out, how you can create a new chapter in your own life. So with that, I want to thank you so much for tuning into Radical Change Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe, please rate the episode, and leave a review. Share this podcast with anyone who might benefit from our journey. Remember that healing is a process, and you don't got to do it alone. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we're going to dive deeper into family ties, right? And really understanding the narcissistic patterns in my family of origin. Like, what did those patterns look like? And I remember thinking, like, my grandfather, he was a mean motherfucker. And now, looking at it all together, yeah, and it filtered right into my mom. It filtered into my Aunt Honey. It filtered into my Aunt Debbie. It filtered into my Aunt Joanne. It literally filtered into 4 people in my family. And the triangulation, the gaslighting, and everything else makes sense because of it. So thank you so much for tuning in to Radical Change, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And if you found this episode valuable, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And I will see you next time.